All right, excellent. Okay, so rewind. We're starting co-direct over. So first update is time banking. Time banking, as many of you may know, is an essential pillar of Ujima. We have a time bank. We merged with a Jamaica Plain Time Bank, I believe, and I want to say we have around, and I'm looking at Dawn, Paige, Johnny, and James. I think 400 members on that time bank. Am I saying too many or too little? Okay, I'm getting a thumbs up there. And so we get a good amount of signups on the time bank. It's an intriguing idea to a lot of people. We want to do some work around having people really use the time bank and make exchanges on the time bank, and really seeing it as a resource that could be integral to their lives. And so one of the ways that we view this time bank is it can allow fellow community members an additional avenue to resource themselves, have their needs met without the barrier of having to spend money to do so. There's community building potential there, there's relationship building potential there. So one of the things that we've talked about in terms of just kind of really increasing the use of the time bank amongst our members and the community members is thinking about a rebrand. And so staff team has come up with a name. So I want to say maybe 4 co-directs ago, this was a suggestion that a couple of members threw out. We put out a notepad to say, drop in your ideas for names here. We've been brainstorming on it ever since. And so an update is we have decided to rename the Ujima Time Bank Cousins. And so for us, we think cousins, and I'll drop it in the chat. We think this represents, to see some applause from the DAF, the nature of the types of relationships that we like to see engendered on the time bank. So there's this notion of not just family, but extended family, and to just also thinking about the mutuality of the exchanges on the time bank. And it occurred to us, this is something that's very familiar that we do in our everyday lives, that we do for each other. We do for our close friends, we do for our extended family, and cousins seem to be the relationship that really, I would say, kind of described and encompassed that well. And so we'll spend the next few months working with the time banking team and at the staff level, and then ultimately with the time banking coordinator that we're going to hire. So that was an update we also gave a few months ago to think about how we tell people about the Cousins Time Bank. We're talking about collecting vignettes from different people about cousins and what that term means to them, what that relationship means to them, and how that relates to what is possible with the time bank. So this is something that we're really excited about. I'm going through a whole bunch of documents here, trying to find the next update.
Oh, it's me. It's
okay.
me.
Thank you, James.
Yeah, just want to also give y'all an update on a new practice that we're hoping to sort of integrate in our work. And we want to essentially just have staff observer check-ins, formal staff observer check-ins with member teams. And this will happen, as you guys know, we have a staff observer, that's a staff member that rotates out of our member teams. And so, there's been some interest, there's been some curiosity or need for us to just make sure that we're in line and that we're just supportive of member teams and developing, but also an opportunity for them to sort of let us know how their work is. And so we do want to sort of start to have these sessions with member teams. And I think the big question beyond sort of just general alignment is what are some big questions or concerns that they want us to respond to? Especially we recognize sometimes we might not be available to do that. And so we really want to position ourselves available to connect and respond to anything member teams are thinking about. And so I believe that we want to start that this month. And so, yeah, that's it. Any questions, um, thoughts,
Can
reactions to that?
I just add a couple of quick details, James, with it, which is we are looking at starting it this month with the Anchor Institution Outreach Team and UNESCO. So if your two teams haven't received invites from Sierra yet, you will. They were slated to go out sometime this week. We know Anchor Institution, your meeting is moving to the 5th week of September. And so our request will be that we have the agenda for that meeting. And UNESCO, we believe, is meeting next week. And similarly, we'd be asking UNESCO if we could have the agenda for that meeting. And that'll be it for this year. Moving forward, we're looking at July being the month for these formal check-ins with all the teams. And just want to highlight is a point that James made is we see this for us, as you all know, we really try to sit back in the member team meetings and try to have as little verbal presence as possible. So we see this as staff teams stepping forward a little more, as James said, to hear priorities in terms of your challenges and your questions, a couple, and then for us to be able to identify just a couple, not a laundry list, a couple of things that we may have questions about. And so moving forward, starting in 2022, these formal check-ins will be taking place in July, but we're just doing 2 this year in September, Anchor Institution, Outreach Team, and UNESCO. Okay to go on, James?
Yeah, I think so.
Great, thank you. And this segues into our next update, which is actually very similar. So we're also wondering, I think as you all know, every week, the next day we have staff meeting, and that's when we go over our observations in member teams. And we brainstorm about what our support and what our participation looks like. That also means, much like you all, when you're doing your peer learnings with each other and just in your participation, you're learning about things that are working, and you're experimenting, and you're coming up with different practices and processes, and some you don't keep, but some work great. So we kind of notice the same thing as well. And so we decided that we'd also like to offer some voice to that, particularly for other teams who may be facing more challenges. There's the opportunity during January, during peer learning, from you all to learn from each other. We see this as an additional learning opportunity for teams to be learning from us as well. So if you recall, January of this year, that was Reflection Month, where we invited all the teams to present to each other challenges, accomplishments, its questions, etc., and really try to have an opportunity to, again, like really actively learn from each other. So we thought that was a great practice. We'd like to continue that. And so we're now formalizing January as Reflection Month for the member teams, with a co-direct being a co-direct that will focus on best practices. And then that's where staff will have an opportunity to present from what we've been seeing. We've been seeing some things that the teams have been doing that we think is pretty great, and that other teams should know about, which will, in some cases be affirmed by the teams themselves, but just in case it isn't, it may be an interesting observation that may have the team kind of, rethink something that we think is pretty cool, that maybe they're like, we're not so sure about this. So just wanted to give you all that preview starting January 2022. Reflection Month will now include a best practices co-direct. All right, it's still me, I see. I'm doing quite a few of these updates. The next one is we've made progress in our endorsement policy. So we've also previewed this kind of question and challenge and practice earlier. One of the things that we do is the very first thing that kind of practice that we decided to do is what we're doing today, which is let's use the co-direct space to present an endorsement request to you all, hopefully with a presentation from the endorser. So we actually do have one today. And really the idea behind this is we would like endorsements that we make to be as representative of our membership as possible. So we wanted to try not to have a top-down decision-making process where something sounds great to us, and so we say, sure, sign us up, or something doesn't. And so we bypass it, and the membership, you're broad, you're diverse, and still it seems to us like we should be checking in with y'all again to make sure that we're on the same page when it comes to saying yes to endorsements, and we're on the same page when it comes to saying no. So we've since updated or added some extra steps that we think allows you all to have additional opportunity to weigh in on the request. So this remains doing the endorsement request during co-direct. Again, we understand not everybody comes to Ujima Wednesdays, not everybody can come. And so for those who are not able to join us in Ujima Wednesdays, we are creating a text line. So Sierra Peters, our communications director, is still in the process of setting that up. But once that's ready, we will send that out to everyone. It'll be in your membership portals. And it'll allow you to essentially opt in to receive texts from us when we receive an endorsement request, and it'll allow you to weigh in by text if you like. And if your feedback is too much for text, you'll be prompted through the text line to just go ahead and send us an email and kind of finish off your thoughts. So what we're thinking is the text will probably go out the third week every month. So the idea is this meeting is a first touch point, then the text line is a second touch point, primarily for those who are not able to either be here tonight or watch the video. You will get that information via text. And then finally, during the fourth week of every month, our staff wire, we are going to have a section in our staff wire where we also include endorsement requests. And that'll be kind of a final opportunity for any member who wants to weigh in on that issue to weigh in. So it'll go out in our staff wire. We'll be seeking information from you all, and we'll be taking the feedback that we get from the co-direct, from anybody who texted us through the text line and anybody who responded to the staff wire. And we'll be using that to then kind of make our final endorsement decision on a particular issue. Emphasis on issue, we do not endorse political candidates. And so then for those of you who have endorsement requests for us, we ask you to take note of that timeline, because we're looking at a minimum of a 3-week process for us to feel like we've comfortably heard from our members. So you just want to think about that when you're reaching out to us for endorsements. We definitely, the nature of some of this work sometimes is we'll get a request maybe the night before something's going to go out. Generally, we're probably not going to accommodate last minute requests. So we do just also ask you to take note of the timeline. And I'll pause before we go to the next update. I believe additionally, if you go to ujimaboston.com/organizing, and if you click on endorsement policy, we have, for the most part, updated that section. So most of it is spelled out there. We're still setting up the text number, so that may not be there just yet.
Cool. So yeah, we've mentioned a couple different sort of like new practices that sort of allow us to learn, new practices that like honor or encourage us to rest as a community. Practices for us to remain just like connected and in line. And so we know that like the membership experience is like shifting. And so we created this membership sort of like schedule that I think really hopefully y'all have access to it, that really illustrates all these sort of like touch points that we're having with y'all, with members. And so I figure it'd be a good it might be a good thing for y'all to share it with members, to to like integrate it into just your membership practice. And so so y'all know what's coming up, and so y'all can plan for it. And so yeah, just we're gonna make it a little prettier, but this is the more or less the sort of schedule that we have right now.
And I see some people can access. I'm updating. Oh, page to try now. Okay, never mind. Thank you.
Yeah.
And this is as pretty as it's gonna get.
Uh,
It's been pretty fine.
oh, okay. So all right, I'm passing to you, Paige.
Awesome. So I have the pleasure and privilege of announcing a new initiative that we're going to be starting this January next year, 2022. So we're going to be having Black and Brown specific meetings. So this will happen every second Wednesday each month. It'll be a space just for BIPOC folks, people of color. And we're doing that to sort of create a very intentional space for folks to share needs that are specific to the BIPOC community in Boston and elsewhere. So we do want to start that next year. Is there more here I should be adding in terms of detail, folks? Other staff chime in?
Sure. Thank you, Paige. We won't be recording those meetings.
Oh, yes.
So rather, and the idea behind that is generally with safe spaces, part of that safety is usually an expectation of privacy and confidentiality. So if the understanding is people feel a little more free and feel like they can kind of open up more with needs and questions and challenges, the idea that that's going to be publicly circulated dampens that a bit. So rather, what we will do is ask for those present to offer reflection quotes so that there is a little bit of insight into what was discussed and what the impact was of people in the space. The other thing we're thinking about as well, James asked a great question. What if you would not go to the BIPOC meeting, but the topic is something you would actually love to learn about, and the speaker is someone you would actually love to, or the presenter is someone you would actually love to hear from. And so we're thinking a way to mitigate that is probably the second week and another week would be similar presentations. And so in that way, really just thinking about if it's a presenter that many people want to hear from, then everybody has an opportunity to hear from that presenter, but it would just be in a different space. So that's something that we're thinking we're going to do to mitigate that scenario. Cool. And I think you got the next one, Paige and James, the last update. So Armani, you're up next after this.
Awesome. I wonder if I can try and share the schedule so people can follow along, share screen, if that's okay. Do I have permission?
I was able to share, so you may be able to, I think Paige should be, boom, got it.
Awesome. Thank you, folks. So awesome. And James, feel free to chime in. I'll do a voiceover. So we are excited to declare this autumn Democracy Autumn at Ujima. You heard it here first. There's a lot happening this fall with the Boston local elections. We have a lot of assembly touch points and ways for folks to participate. So I feel like this is Democracy Autumn, y'all. So what does that mean? September, as we kind of discussed, is going to be our public banking month. So we have our micro-learning pod led by Jija, who I think is with us now, happening across September, October, and November. That would be taking place starting today. We have obviously early voting for the Boston preliminary election happening as well in September. And then of course, we're going to be having our Wednesday workshops around public banking as well throughout the month of September. And then we're actually going to be launching and announcing more in more detail very soon our assembly for cultural workers and artists. And that's going to be sort of themed around artist political power. And we'll talk about what that means for October in a minute. I'll be launching in September. And then I think the last kind of bit here is that we already opened our Arts and Cultural Organizing Fellowship application. So it is open for submissions now, and that will be closing on September 20th. So you have until then to get your proposals in. Awesome. So October, as I mentioned, is going to be the meat of our cultural assembly. We're going to be having about 3 workshops themed around arts and political power. Separately, we're going to be having an event around Ujima's board design process. Some of you might know that we're trying to launch and develop our own board, and we want that to be a really collaborative process. So we're going to be having a dialogue event for that in October. Welcome folks to join that as well. There's a deadline in October around signing up for the municipal election as well for Boston. So we have that on here. As part of our cultural assembly, we're going to be having an exhibition reception for folks to get to know the work of the artists who are applying for our funding in the assembly. So that will be taking place in October as well. And then dates are sort of TBD on this, but we're also very excited about a collaboration between us and the Future is Present group out of MIT, if folks are familiar with that. And that will be sort of an assembly around how we can translate texts that are important and sacred to Ujima into real life kind of vocal assemblies taking place around the city. So more details on that forthcoming, but that will also be an October event as well. And bring us home in November, that's going to be our land and real estate month. So obviously more updates around the Boston election are going to be happening in November, but also we're going to be hosting workshops around land and real estate that month, hoping to work with Theater of the Oppressed for those workshops as well. More to be announced dates we're hoping it's going to be at Ujima dinner as well around the month of November, and definitely having our real estate assemblies and workshops as well that month. So a lot for folks to look forward to, and more details on some of these latter events coming soon. And I'll stop sharing.
Cool. Thank you, Paige. And James, was there anything you wanted to add?
No, I think Paige covered it. We're really excited about this cultural assembly, y'all, and really, we want to drop the application pretty soon, an announcement. So really encourage y'all to push it. We're collaborating with a lot of folks y'all know. Black Economic Council of Massachusetts, Mayor's Office of Resilience and Racial Equity, the Mayor's Office of Arts and Culture, Assets for Artists, Mass MoCA, New England Foundation for Arts, Artist Asylum. So super excited to work alongside them for this effort. And yeah, so that's going to be, you're probably going to hear a lot about that. So just want to sort of highlight it.
Cool. Thank you. Thank you so much. So yeah, so we're super excited about Democracy Autumn. And we're going to send out a welcome back letter to everyone on Tuesday, so the day after Labor Day, and we'll include the calendar so that you all can download it and mark all the dates that are exciting to you all. And we'll provide a little bit more color in that letter as well. All right, now we'll move on to our discussion. So tonight, for an endorsement request, we're hearing from Armani White of Center for Economic Democracy, who will talk to us about Yes on One. And Armani, try to knock it out in 7 or 8 minutes if you can. You're muted if you're talking, Armani.
Oh crap, sorry about that. Hey, what's up everybody? Thank you. And just one more time, how much time do I have, Nia?
Try to knock it out in 7 or 8 minutes. You think you could do that? Because we want to leave space for some questions and some feedback.
Yeah, we can make it real snappy. Can you give me sharing abilities?
Yeah, I think it would be, let me see if I can do it.
You go to participant and then next to my name, more, and then click.
I'm not in control of this, so I don't know, Johnny, if you're around. I think Johnny, you're the one who would have to do it.
You're a co-host, so you should be able to, it says on here.
I can't do it.
Yeah. Maybe Johnny, I don't know. Or is it not possible because this is being like live streamed maybe?
No, it just doesn't show me that option when I
Oh,
click
the
on,
option, okay.
yeah.
Okay, I should be
Okay,
able, I should be able to do it
I
now.
have the website up. What do you want to share?
Here we go.
Okay, all right.
So I just want to talk to this quick presentation about what this campaign is about. So Center for Economic Democracy, Right to the City of Boston, and Families for Justice Healing are in the driver's seat behind the question, yes on question 1, which is a question that every voter, when you go to vote this November, will be faced with voting yes or no on. And just so folks kind of understand, the background of this campaign is about getting transparency, democracy, and more community input really in the budgeting process. We kind of call it, and we're somewhat stealing this tagline, democracy beyond elections. And it's it's thinking about how do we actually look at the different structures in our government and decide how to change them for the betterment of our of everyone, for racial justice. One of the things I'll say too is that we're a part of this coalition, and it's been moving and growing, and so we're trying to reach out to organizations like the Boston Ujima Project to sign on and support and share this in your comms, and I'll talk more about it later. But again, this is a ballot question coming up. It's about amending the city's charter, creating participatory budgeting, mandating it at the city level for everyone, and giving city councilors more budget power. Folks behind this campaign, Families for Justice Healing and Right to the City of Boston, have been doing this work for a long time, thinking about people's budgets, thinking about how do we how do we actually structure our government in a way where people have more direct say. And after George Floyd was murdered 2 summers ago, budgets became a major site for advocacy, right? The defund movement became like a household word. And thinking about, budgets. City Councilor Lydia Edwards, after voting in support of the budget, it was a very fraught budget discussion for folks who don't know, decided that the budget process for the city of Boston was broken. People shouldn't have to throw out the whole budget with the bathwater. We should have more to say in how the actual budget process goes. The Center for Economic Democracy has been looking at this for years with folks like, Chuck Turner, who is a Black liberation activist, former city councilor, thinking about ways that we change the structures in our government and make them, like I said, better for racial justice. People like Mel King ran on a platform of changing the city's charter to give more representation for people. So I'll explain a bit more again what the charter is, but the CED's point of entry is through research and research, kind of understanding how to do this, and then actually throwing our weight and resources behind making it happen. So just so folks know, again, right, this will be on the ballot this November. When we talk about the charter, we're not talking about charter schools. We're talking about the Boston Municipal Charter, which is a legal document that lays out all of the essential, basically, rules for how the government works. And again, that report, when I say we do research, CD is releasing a report soon on the different ways the city charter can be changed. When I have more time, usually I go through like a longer explanation of how the city's budget works, but important to understand, we have a $3.6 billion budget, and currently we spend it majority on education and policing. And one would argue we should maybe spend more money on education, and then some might argue we should spend less on policing. And so right now, as I'll explain in a second, city councilors have no real say, and regular citizens have no direct say beyond their beyond the mayor currently in deciding how the budget gets decided. And it's important to also note that this is our money. We're not like playing with other people's money, as some people say, where this is taxpayer dollars, tickets you get when you park in the wrong place, like me. This is what's funding this. So we should have a direct say in how this is spent. So again, if I had more time, I kind of like go a little bit slower through the process of how it happens, but the budget itself is decided essentially through the mayor's office currently, in partnership with the directors of departments that the mayor appoints themselves, and the Office of Budget Management, which is like the research department. City councilors get 2 votes on this budget, this $3.7 billion budget. And with the diversity council that we have now, their brilliance and expertise for their neighborhoods should be included in the process. How it's currently decided, again, I'm not gonna go through this, but currently, essentially December through April, it's a closed process with the city departments and the mayor, and then city councilors get a couple of, get basically to hold a number of hearings where they get to actually not amend anything. They just get to vote basically one time to say no, and then another time to say, hey, we didn't get enough, or you didn't do enough here or there. After that, the city, they have to actually vote on they have their last vote. The city's budget has never not passed. City councilors in the past two seasons have actually gotten close to that. And so if it doesn't pass, we go into a 1/12 budget where programs decided on for investment, like programs based off of political needs, whether it's more anti-violence programs, whether it's like a nonviolent responder team for mental health crisis, stuff like that can't get funded if this happens, and we go into a 1/12 budget where city councilors vote the budget down. So it kind of makes it like you have to throw the baby out with the bathwater under the current system if you don't like it. So our amendment will be a major game changer, because what it will allow is during the actual period where city councilors get the budget and there's a public deliberation, they can actually, in those hearings, propose changes to the city budget and vote on them. And then if together they, basically together, they vote the same way as before, they do one vote in the beginning and second vote before the end of the budget season in June. If they all vote no, their budget that they voted all in support of and put together goes into effect. So it requires the mayor to work with the city council so that their budget doesn't get passed and not his. And this also puts an onus on them to work together to get their priorities collectively passed, as well as to work together to make a better budget for all. So really, this puts more power in our city councilors. Important to note too that we elect a mayor once every 4 years. We elect our city councilors. Each of us in this, in this Zoom room, apparently, assuming that we're Boston residents, are represented by 5 city councilors, 4 at large and 1 district. So, and we elect them every 2 years. So having them have a say in the budget, what means we have more direct say in the budget. I would pause here to ask for questions about that, but I'm just going to take questions at the end. The other half of what happens with this effort, if you all vote, we get the word out there, November 2nd, it passes, is that it would mandate the city to create a participatory budgeting office, a fund, and an oversight committee to implement participatory budgeting citywide. The Center for Economic Democracy was a part of creating the youth participatory budgeting process, but there's no adult participatory budgeting process. So we would mandate that. So that's basically, and then participatory budgeting is like a phenomenal way for residents, individuals to have a direct say in how money is spent. It's especially when the process is designed well. So we're going to be a part of the team of folks designing that, and we're actually hoping that in talks already with the Ujima Project about how to support those efforts, knowing that that's some of y'all's expertise. Skipping ahead here, how do we get there, right? We're trying to get as many people as possible to vote yes November 2nd, spreading the word. We have an effort to reach 70,000 voters, cover the city in signs, want to turn folks out at the primary at every polling location with cards about us, about our campaign. And again, on November 2nd, and every leading mayoral candidate supports this. We also have endorsements from a wide variety of unions, working class led organizations, racial justice organizations, you name it. Boston Teachers Union, Massachusetts Nurses Association, Planned Parenthood, leading racial justice organizations in Boston, and the list is growing. Some aren't listed here, like the Jamaica Plain Neighborhood Development Corporation and Boston Jobs Coalition. So that's the quick and dirty 7-minute version of Yes on One. And yeah, would really like Ujima Project to support this, sign out to endorse it formally. And want to make sure that we get this in front of the members and folks get to see. If you want to get a long time, want to learn more individually as just a regular person, like individual, you can go to yesononeboston.com/volunteer, follow us on all these things and sign up to get a long sign. So hope I didn't talk too fast. I haven't had to do this in 7 minutes, but I think I did my thing. So if anybody has any questions, I definitely want to be able to answer them, and I could pull the slides back up too if that's helpful.
Thank you, Armani. And that was not too fast. That was great. And that was actually more than 7 minutes, but that's fine. You had a lot to cover. So any questions or feedback from anyone? Okay, we'll put this out in our staff wire in a couple of weeks. So that'll be another opportunity to weigh in. And as I said, we're setting up our text hotline for you all to sign up for and to further weigh in there as well. And again, really just want to make sure our decisions are as representative as possible of our membership body. So thank you so much, Armani. And of course, feel free to weigh in at any time. So you can feel free to send an email to Ujima or Armani. The website is there, and there's definitely contact information on there with any questions or feedback. Thank you, Armani.
Thanks for your time, y'all.
All right, so this wraps us up. So I'll pause to see if anybody, before I turn off the recording, has any final thoughts, questions before we transition into the Arts and Cultural Organizing Microlearning Pod. All right, thank y'all. I'm gonna stop the recording